Yeah, that TV series 24 with Jack Bauer, right? So everyone thinks that that's what interrogation is like. You just, hooking up, electrodes and shocking people and doing all those kinds of physical things to people. It's really not that. It's interrogations is much more about conversations. It's about a lot of wordsmithing. And on the military side, we were really constrained by the rules and regulations that we had to operate under.
So you guys weren't allowed to waterboard?
No.
Okay.
No, that would have landed you in a world of trouble.
Really?
An arrest. Oh, hands down. Yeah. No,
maybe because you guys weren't at one of the CIA black sites. That's why.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and if you were at a CIA black site, God help you if you're still considered active military doing that, because you're under different rules and regulations than what they are. They have a different set of rules that they can play by than we do. We're under UCMJ, and so we have to abide by what our box of tools are, and it's constricting. I mean, give you an example: someone gets captured, and we bring them in. Ideally, you want to put them in separation so that way they can't be coached by the other people in the prison on what to say and how to evade us.
Yes.
But to put them in separation, I got to have a 06 colonel sign off to put them in separation just for, I think it was 72 hours. And then if I want to put them in separation for up to a month, now I've got to have my task force commander, which is a two-star general, sign off on that just to have them in isolation for 30 days. And if I want to extend that for an additional 30 days, then I would have to have our theater commander. So in my case, I'd have to have General Petraeus sign off on that. And I did. I had him sign off on 2 of them because I had 2 guys that we kept in separation for 60 days. But that just shows you some of the red tape we had to deal with, because that's quite constraining. You would think that it should be a common sense thing, because in the U.S., we can put people in isolation. We have people in isolation in prison for years. But in war, it's considered, inhumane treatment of a prisoner or something like that. But it's not in America. Yeah, I mean, FBI can do this. Prison system can do this, but you can't do that in a war. It's quite interesting, the rules you had to deal with. You have to be very careful with like perceived threats or direct threats to people. You can't directly threaten them. Like, you don't talk to me, then we're going to harm your family. Well, that's a direct threat. That'll land you in a lot of trouble. You're probably going to get relieved and maybe even face some UCMJ charges.
Right.
So you have to learn how to be very good with your words and just say, well, look, I can't make you cooperate. You don't want to talk to me. That's fine. I get it. But if you're of no intelligence value to us, then we're going to have to work on handing you over to the Ministry of Justice and the Iraqi police. Well, if he's a Sunni terrorist and he's being handed over to the Ministry of Justice and the police, who are predominantly run by Shia, life's not going to go very well for him. So I didn't threaten him, but I let him connect the dots for himself.
Yeah.
And now he's got to prove why he should stay with me and why he's valuable enough to be kept. Because if he's not, well, we'll send him down to Camp Bucca in the South, and that's long-term detainment. And you'll just have to wait your turn as you process through the criminal system. And maybe you'll be acquitted because they don't have any good evidence, but that might take you 2 years or 3 years for that to happen.
So before you got sent over to Iraq, I'm sure did you have any sort of special interest in interrogation or psychology to begin with? And what sort of training did you have to go through to learn these tactics?
Yeah, so I didn't have any previous experience in that or necessarily desire. I would say it was a job I didn't know about. And it's a job that most people don't know about or think about. It's not a very big profession in the military to begin with, and it tends to be a profession you only really need during a war. Outside of war, it's kind of challenging to do that. You end up working on the other side of the schoolhouse, which is the source operations, where you're developing sources, recruiting and assessing people who can be informants for you, so to speak. And you would do that outside of military bases overseas to make sure you're assessing for threats against the facility or against soldiers operating off the base, things like that. So that's what you would tend to do more on the peacetime side. As far as the training, we all went through the same training that they have out at Fort Huachuca, the 97 Echo course. I think they probably changed the MOS at this point, but it's about a 4.5 month course, and then they have a second course, an enhanced interrogation analysis training, and that's where you kind of are paired up more as tiger teams, where it's you and an analyst working together as a team.
Enhanced interrogation, what?
It was an enhanced interrogation analysis team.
Analysis.
Yeah. So in this case, what you now is you have an analyst that's working with you. And that's what we did. There was us as the interrogator, then we had an Air Force analyst working with us, or a contract analyst, and then our linguist. And that formed your tiger team. And the analyst was really helpful because they could do a lot of the research that you couldn't always do. I mean, you're going into the booth, you're interrogating the subject, you're talking with them, but the analyst is sometimes vetting what they're telling you, like on the spot
in
right
real
there.
time.
Yeah, or they're doing research of the prisoners that are coming in. So my analyst, Jeremy, he was phenomenal. And what would happen is when a bunch of new prisoners would come in, he look at the incoming sheet and see who's coming in and where they were captured. And we only dealt with prisoners that were coming in from the Diyala province. We knew our area, our province really well. And if we had new prisoners coming in from a particular village, then he would look and say, okay, what do we know about this village from the previous guys we've interrogated? And what do we need to know to further our mission in this area to go after these other cells? And that would help me know specifically what questions to go after, or maybe ask them, do you know this other prisoner? And get him to tell me a bit more about this prisoner. And I can kind of vet some of what he's already told me with this other guy. Maybe it's true, but now I can also let this other guy know that, hey, I know a hell of a lot about your area, and I know a lot about you. You know, you're here because someone narked. So let's talk. And that was really, really helpful because, again, it's just another resource to help you track down information, know where to steer you, where to point, so to speak.
And what did they teach you about breaking down the human mind and sort of like getting into the deep, dark secrets? Yeah, the best thing I learned was from one of our instructors at the advanced school. He was a retired Special Forces warrant officer and been an interrogator for a long time. And had a couple tours under his belt before he retired, then went to the schoolhouse teaching us. And one of the things he told me is, he's like, all right, it's kind of like knocking at someone's door when you start the interrogation. You get them to open the door. What you want to do is you want them to invite you in and start talking. And then once they've invited you in, you want them to kind of give you a tour of the house, a tour of the rooms, and see everything in there. So to put it in like a conversation, when we start talking, I can either go at you and say, where are the weapons that your organization is using? Where are you hiding them? Where are you storing them? And how are you acquiring them? Chances are you're not going to talk to me about that. But I can spend all day grilling you about this, berating you, trying all kinds of different tactics. But likely is it's not going to work. Or I can take a different tack and just try to be more of a conversation with you and just try to accept that, we are adversaries, obviously, but you're still a human being. So you still have human desires and wants and needs and things like that. So let me play to those. So kind of talk with them and ask them, just like I had one guy, he was a real big guy with the Ansar al-Sunna organization. And one of the things I talked with him was, why did you get into this? Like, what did you do before the war? So get him to talk about that. And he owned a business. He got his master's in economics. He actually had a good life before the war. And when I talked to him about that, I was like, so why are you doing this? And his basic response was, well, when you guys came here, I lost everything. I lost my stature and position in the community because I was, a Sunni. I was with the Ba'ath Party, and I have no future employment opportunities and ability here. So why would I not fight you? Right. And that when I kind of got to that point there and we started talking, right? I'm not accusing him of anything. I'm asking him why he feels this way and why he's doing that. He starts to open up more. And I say, all right, you're here now. There's nothing we can do about that. So let's make the best of the situation. Who are some of the other organizations in your area where you live that are causing problems? Because Al-Qaeda in Iraq and Ansar al-Sunna and these other different splinter groups, they're not always working together. And sometimes they do. Sometimes they work against each other. But it's also ideological. So there's going to be like Shia organizations that are fighting against the Sunni ones because it was kind of almost like a civil war in a way. Right. And the Sunni guys, Al-Qaeda guys, will get diarrhea of the mouth about the Shia militias and insurgent groups and tell you everything you want to know about them.
Well, we have collection requirements to go after that too. It's not just the Al Qaeda ones. We want to know who the other guys are that are causing the problems as well, and where they're smuggling their stuff in, because a lot of their stuff comes in from Iran. So if you're not going to talk with me about his organization, at least not right away, then let me get him talking about the other one. And as we start sharing more and we start developing that bit of rapport, now I can start whittling and getting a little bit more information from him about his. And in his case, it was more about how have you been able to outsmart us all this time? And he was kind of I don't say arrogant, but he liked to brag about how smart and effective his group was, and how they had outfoxed us for so many years and outsmarted us. So I played that. I was like, okay, well, how? Tell me about this. And then just kind of like, oh man, that's so clever. You guys did that. I can't believe we were too stupid to figure this out, and just kind of play along with that. And that led to him telling a lot more than he probably wanted to. And you just kind of let them talk and just poke and prod. It's conversational. And another really big thing to do, and it's all it depends on the culture you're dealing with. In the Middle East and in Arab cultures, it's very common to sit and break bread and have a meal. And when you have meals with each other like that, you're not really adversaries, so to speak, in their culture. And so it's not uncommon. You've seen this with Afghanistan in some of the tribals relationships and the way they interact. They can be sit and have dinner together and converse normally, and then the next day they're fighting each other, right?
Right.
Us in the West, it just doesn't compute. Like, why would you do that? But that's their culture. And so when you kind of understand their culture a little bit, you start, just play along with it. So for me, we would sit and have a meal, dinner with terrorists.
So you're letting these guys obviously aren't constrained. They aren't handcuffed.
I got an MP outside. And he's sitting out there with a taser and a German Shepherd. He's ready to go. So I mean, if they want to get feisty.
I mean, this guy could just grab his fork or his knife and just like leap across the table, couldn't he?
Maybe if he wants to grab it, it's a plastic fork, plastic knife.
Okay, gotcha.
It's like it's a real one.
Yeah.
I mean, sure, they can do something too. The chances of them killing you, pretty slim.
Right.
Maybe you might get punched in the face or get hurt, but the guards are going to be on them pretty quick. I mean, and hopefully you're going to have a little bit of your own wits about you to be able to, defend your own self too a little bit. But we never had an incident like that. We didn't have any incidents like that. In a way, I was kind of surprised, but when you get there and you kind of see it, I mean, they're in this they're not getting out of this prison. And so, I don't want to say they're broken, but they kind of accepted that they're here. That makes sense.